You need a license to drive a car. You also need proof of insurance. And to maximize safety, every state in America has hundreds of laws regulating driving. They tell you what side of the road to drive on, when to stop, how fast you can drive. They require that you wear seatbelts, that you drive sober. Because everybody knows that while motor vehicles can be operated safely, in the wrong hands, they can kill and maim. But with a robust set of laws, we can significantly limit the damage that they do. Why can't we do that with guns? Push a pro-gun conservative hard enough on that point, and they always fall back on the same argument. The Constitution doesn't guarantee your driving rights, but it does guarantee your gun rights. Quote, a well-regulated militia being necessary to the security of a free state, the right of the people to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed. The Second Amendment. Conservatives argue that the Second Amendment makes America unique, exceptional. And they're right. I'm from the UK. We don't have a Second Amendment there. It's a right that doesn't exist in Canada, or France, or India, or Russia, or Brazil. In fact, only 3 countries on earth have gun rights embedded in their constitution: the United States, Mexico, and Guatemala. And both those 2 countries say that right only extends to the home. And they both make it very difficult to purchase guns. America, of course, is different, not just because of the Second Amendment's text, but how the courts have interpreted it. Take the militia clause. Historically, courts understood the clause to mean that states, and only states, could raise militaries comprised of their own armed populace. But in 2008, the conservative-led John Roberts Supreme Court embraced a different interpretation. In its Heller versus D.C. decision, the Roberts Court found that the Second Amendment conferred not a collective, but an individual right to bear arms. Since then, Republican-led states have rushed to expand gun rights: stand your ground, campus carry, open carry, permitless carry. We now live in the only nation on earth where there are estimated to be more guns than there are people, and where guns now kill more children and adolescents in America than cars do. The late Supreme Court Justice John Paul Stevens blamed the Heller decision for this turn of events, saying his peers had taken the power to govern out of legislators' hands.
The effect of the Second Amendment, as it's now construed, is to make federal judges the final arbiters of gun policy, which is quite wrong, I think, and quite contrary to what the framers intended when they drafted the Second Amendment.
But that Heller decision was the culmination of decades of demagoguery and fear-mongering by the gun lobby, as another retired Supreme Court Justice, Chief Justice Warren Burger, argued more than 3 decades ago.
If I were writing the Bill of Rights now, there wouldn't be any such thing as the Second Amendment. This has been the subject of one of the greatest pieces of fraud, I repeat the word fraud, on the American public by special interest groups that I have ever seen in my lifetime.
So what can we do about a constitutional amendment whose novel legal interpretation, thanks to a conservative Supreme Court, is so broad as to preclude any reasonable limits on gun ownership? An interpretation that renders us incapable of doing much of anything to prevent mass shootings like Uvalde, Buffalo, Parkland, and Sandy Hook. Some say, get rid of the Second Amendment. Might sound crazy, but one of the people who said it was Justice Stevens after he retired from the bench. Stevens said in an op-ed in 2018 after the Parkland shooting, titled "Repeal the Second Amendment," quote, "Overturning via a constitutional amendment to get rid of the Second Amendment would be simple and would do more to weaken the NRA's ability to stymie legislative debate and block constructive gun control legislation than any other available option." But Mehdi, you'll say, conservatives will accuse liberals of wanting to take away all their guns. The thing is, they already say that.
They want to take away Second Amendment rights, and that's what they want to do.
They immediately start calling that we've got to take away the Second Amendment rights of law-abiding citizens.
The objective should not be how to get rid of the Second Amendment.
I'm up here to protect the Second Amendment, not repeal it.
They've sought to undermine and restrict and even eliminate the Second Amendment rights of Americans.
They're going to try to take away your Second Amendment liberties.
They want to defund the police and take away your Second Amendment rights.
With the Second Amendment And with the Heller decision that interprets it so strangely, conservatives have managed to paint any limit on gun ownership, even the hugely popular, if mild, limits like universal background checks, red flag laws, storage requirements, a ban on assault-style weapons. They've managed to paint all of that as liberal gun grabs, the destruction of the Second Amendment. Remember this presidential Ted Cruz ad from 2016? Obama wants your guns. Obama didn't want them. He didn't grab them. But to Republicans, it didn't matter. If this is how they respond to background checks, then part of me wonders, why don't Democrats go further? I mean, why not put the Second Amendment on the table for negotiation? If that's what they're using to cynically block the mildest, most basic, most popular of gun control measures, why not put it on the table? Why not make the Constitution a living document again by, amending it? We've done it before. The original Constitution didn't give women the vote, so we amended it. It didn't give slaves the right to be free of bondage, so we amended it. We understood once that the world of our founders is not our world. That's why they gave us a constitution with the broad strokes and with a mechanism for being updated, amended. If hardline conservatives and their allies on the Supreme Court are going to keep interpreting the Second Amendment in a way that it wasn't understood for the majority of American history, as kids are massacred in schools, maybe it's time to make the meaning of that amendment in the Constitution much clearer. What's the worst that's going to happen? Conservatives attack liberals as anti-gun, as anti-Second Amendment. As we just saw, they already do that. To those who think repealing or changing or amending the Second Amendment is unrealistic, impractical, impossible even, I say, fair point. It is all of those things. But you know what else is unrealistic, impossible even? Getting Republicans to vote in favor of any kind of meaningful gun legislation, especially if they can hide behind the Second Amendment as interpreted by the Roberts Court. Joining me now to talk about all of this is Elie Mystal. He writes extensively about the Second Amendment in his new book, Allow Me to Retort, A Black Guy's Guide to the Constitution. Elie is also justice correspondent for The Nation magazine. Thank you for coming back on the show. In your book, Elie, you argue that an individual right to self-defense with a gun was not provided by the Second Amendment, but by the conservative Supreme Court's interpretation of the Second Amendment in its Heller decision. You also say, quote, there was an original purpose to the Second Amendment, but it wasn't to keep people safe. It was to preserve white supremacy and slavery. Briefly, Elie, how do we know that to be the case for sure?
Yeah, so I'm coming up with that just because I'm reading Patrick Henry and George Mason, who was then governor of Virginia at the founding of the country. This is not my words. This is what those white guys said when they were debating the Second Amendment. They said that they needed a Second Amendment because they needed the armed, disciplined, that was their word, militia to put down slave revolts. And they were worried that under the original Constitution, the federal government had all of the power to raise the militia, right? The Southerners needed the militias to put down slave revolts because, Mendy, it's a little bit difficult to hold people in bondage against their will. So you needed some military superiority, and the Second Amendment was there to make sure that the states had the power to raise the militia on their own. So Virginia could raise its own militia to put down slave revolts in Virginia without having to ask Connecticut or Massachusetts whether or not they agreed with that. That's why it's there. That's why the white folks said it was there. Fast forward to 2008, and Antonin Scalia just makes up an entirely different Second Amendment right out of thin air.
So that's the history, and I'm glad you clarified it for us ever so briefly and eloquently. We're in the current day. We're in 2022. America's one of only 3 countries in the world, as I mentioned a moment ago, that has a constitutional right to bear arms. And even Mexico and Guatemala don't say you can wander around college campuses or whatever it is, public places, supermarkets with guns. How do we get to this point? How do we get to this exceptionalism? I want to play you a clip. Ted Cruz talking to my old colleague, Mark Stone at Sky News. Have a listen.
Why does this only happen in your country? I really think that's what many people around the world they cannot fathom. Why only in America? Why is this American exceptionalism so awful?
I'm sorry you think American exceptionalism is awful.
I think this aspect of it.
you got your political agenda.
No, it's honestly,
God love you. Why is it that people come from all over the world to America? Because it's the freest, most prosperous, safest country on earth.
It may be the freest. It may be the most.
Elliot, how do you debate with conservatives who, when you point out to them American exceptionalism on guns is a bad form of exceptionalism, nobody else has kids die like this in schools, they celebrate that exceptionalism still?
Yeah, you don't debate them. They're not interested in debate. They're not arguing in good faith. There is no winning argument. There is no, oh, look at the hypocrisy on Ted Cruz that's going to make Ted Cruz not be a dripping hypocrite. You don't debate them, you beat them. You don't debate them, you win. Right. And so what has to happen is that when Democrats have power, they have to use that power maximally to stop these people and defend our children. That's the only option, because as you saw in that clip, debating them is pointless. They're not interested in any kind of logical framework of debate. Other countries have mental health issues. Other countries have disaffected male youth. Other countries have violent video games. What other countries don't have is a bloodthirsty interpretation of a Second Amendment and a right to bear arms.
So given that interpretation,
other countries don't have mass shootings.
So Ellie, given that interpretation, given your point about wielding power maximally, Democrats when they can, let's talk about amending the Constitution. You want to repeal the Second Amendment. John Paul Stevens, late Supreme Court Justice, said change the Constitution, get rid of the Second Amendment. It's the only way to get past Heller and the likes of, the late Scalia on the court. People listening will say, great, in theory, it's never going to happen in real life. What do you say to them?
I don't know why it's never going to happen in real life, because I come at this from a very simple perspective. If you do not agree with me that the Second Amendment allows for gun regulation, like if you just have a intellectual belief that the Second Amendment does not allow the government to regulate guns to stop these mass shootings, then how can you not be for repealing such a dumb law, right? If you honestly think that the Second Amendment is so dumb that we basically have entered into a suicide pact that requires us to be allowed to kill each other, then how can you not be in favor of repealing the Second Amendment? I think the Second Amendment is more elastic than the NRA thinks, but if you agree with the NRA, then certainly you must agree that the Constitution needs to be updated and amended to be a more safe document than it was in the 18th century. So I don't think that the argument that, well, people will just never go for it really holds water if you can get people to agree that we should be safer. The problem that you have is getting people that first step is that they don't actually think that we should be safer. They think wrongly,
what's so funny,
provably wrongly, that guns are what keeps us safe, when that's just not true.